This is how to overcome fear and gain more confidence as a professional speaker. So, I'm sure you're aware that the number one fear in the world is public speaking. It's the thing that most people want to avoid more than death. So how do we overcome the fear of public speaking? Well, first of all, let's understand what the fear actually is. Most of the time when we're afraid of public speaking, what we're actually afraid of is making mistakes, which is really about avoiding judgment, avoiding failure. And so a lot of this can really bring up some deep fears, and a lot of the time it can bring up fears from our past as well. So having some strategies to be able to move through these fears is absolutely key. I really love the book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. I think that's fantastic, and I love that message because it really is about integrating that fear into our world, moving through it, and then eventually what happens is the energy actually decreases and eventually there's no fear. But in the beginning, there's way more than there is, for example, in 2 or 3 years' time. I've been doing this for 10 years and I generally don't experience fear at all. I might get a little bit excited, and so I've moved through it, and I want to share with you the things that I did to be able to move through that. The first one is this, is when you actually feel fear or anxiety, don't try and squash it down by pumping yourself up. Now, a lot of people do this, and you may see people like bouncing on trampolines and getting really pumped up and I used to do like push-ups and things like that before a training, just to kind of change the emotional channel. This is actually counterproductive because the thing that you want to do when you're on stage is you want to emotionally connect with your audience. And if you have an emotional experience and you've disconnected from that, then you will automatically disconnect from your audience. And so the key, and this might seem like counterintuitive, but it's to stay connected to your emotions. That may seem uncomfortable in the beginning, but the way to do it is through being compassionate. When you are feeling anxious about being on stage, tell yourself, this is okay. You're allowed to be anxious. Of course you're anxious. You're doing something that most people would never do. The interesting paradox there is that if you try and push away your anxiety, it actually gets worse. Whatever you resist persists. And so the key is acceptance and compassion and kindness towards our emotional experience. Try that on, because after a while of practicing it, you actually create a relationship with your emotions where you allow them to be there, and then emotions like fear and anxiety don't have as much of a hold over you if you stop spending all this time pushing them away. Just allow them to be there. Breathe deeper, and then I'll share with you the next 2 steps that make it really easy. The second one is this. Focus on your audience as much as you possibly can. Where our attention goes, energy flows. And if you're in an online training or in a face-to-face room and you can focus your energy and your intention on the people as much as possible. One of the things that I do is if I'm in a room of 200 people, I will make some connection with the people at the front of the room, and I'll just imagine I'm having a one-on-one conversation with them. Because one-on-one conversations are easy. I'll talk with each individual, I'll make eye contact, I'll look for a response from people. This can be done in online trainings as well through video on platforms like Zoom, for example. And when you focus on them, you kind of move into the background. On stage, if you're overly worried about you can't be focused on the audience. And really a great training is about calibration. It's about reading the audience and seeing if they're getting your message, and if they're not, calibrating and engaging and connecting with your audience. They are the most important qualities of any great trainer. The third one is this is more practical. When you start a training, know your opening really, really well. One of the things that I used to do in my first couple of years of being a trainer was I would practice the opening of any training about 10 or 20 times in the morning before I went on stage. Now, I would practice it much before then as well, but just before I went on stage, I'd be in my hotel room and I'd be going over the opening again and again and again, just that first maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And the reason why is when you start your training, you want to start your training with as much confidence and certainty. This is appropriate for a 1-day, 2-day event, or simply appropriate for something like a TED Talk or a speech you may be preparing for. If you know your opening and you nail your opening, it sets the scene for the rest of the training. Where if you get on stage and the first 5 or 10 minutes is a little bit of a challenge, you're automatically going to start feeling even more anxious and even more uncertain because you haven't started well. Start strong with any speech or any training. It'll set the tone, and you'll start to feel even more confident because you'll be realizing, hey, I'm actually doing this. I'm doing really well. So they're the 3 things that I recommend you can implement into your world straight away to develop even more confidence and overcome the fear of being a professional speaker. If you've resonated with that, if you have loved it or taken away any insights from it, I would love to encourage you to go ahead and click the link below. You'll head over to another page where I'd love to invite you along to a live training we're running all about becoming a professional speaker. Go ahead and click the link, and I trust I will see you on the other side.